Hi there, Lindsay here, the Frugal Crafter. It is Sat Chat time. I hope you're having a wonderful weekend. I hope you had a good week. It's been weird. It's been kind of a low-key week for me. There's been some weird events, but it's overall been pretty good, and sailing into the weekend, feeling pretty happy. I actually have my notes today ready to go on my phone. I have so many different notes. This is how I kind of stay organized, because I find that, and this still happens to me even with how organized I try to be, is I will come downstairs and I will set foot in my studio. Now this is the filming room studio where I have heat, so I do a lot of my work here, especially in the winter. I'll step in here and I'll start looking around, and I will just be like frozen to the spots. Like I don't know what direction to go in, even with all my little notes and lists and stuff. So if you got some tips on how you get unstuck when you've got the time to create and you have the place to create, and that's like, oh, what do I do? What do I pick? It's like decision fatigue. I've got so many fun things I want to try that it's like, well, what do I have time to do? What do I want to do? But having the notes definitely helps. But I'm like, I'm gonna make a note for Sat Chat so I don't forget all the things that I want to talk about. I did get the new webcam. I know, like I talked about, well, you remember a couple of weeks ago I was like freaking out because I had just done Michael's class, and in my mind it was like just like a plane crash. It was a train wreck. It was awful. And then I went back and watched the replay, and I'm like, oh, it was fine. It was fine. I had to use the mic on my phone because I had plugged in my old webcam onto my new laptop, and I could not get any microphones to show up. So it was just it threw me for a loop right before I went on. So the problem was, after a bunch of investigating both by me and my husband, it was a Windows 11 compatibility issue. And I just bought the laptop and I was really kind of crestfallen. I felt bad that I bought that one. And it was expensive. And so many people are like, Lindsay, just take it back and get a Mac. And I'm like, I don't have any Apple products. I have no experience with Apple products. My husband is very knowledgeable with PC stuff, so I'm like, I really want to have a type of machine that he can fix if I get myself into trouble. And it seems like with Apple products, you pay a lot more just for the brand name, and I don't pay more for a brand name unless there's demonstrably better quality. And I'm not familiar with Apple products, so I can't say if there is. One of my daughters has a MacBook and the other one has a PC. So I mean, I don't know. I do know that Macs are definitely more liked by creative professionals, but I want to stick with what I know because I don't like tech. I don't like to learn new tech if I don't have to. I like to play with the art stuff. I like to play with the hands-on, physical, tangible stuff. I'm not somebody that loves to get down in the weeds with computers. But this webcam works great. It's got a remote, and I can zoom in and zoom out and pan around. And I was really pleased with how the picture looked. I did some tests yesterday. Very happy with it. And then I looked at the booklet. Like after I did all this, I found the booklet, and then I'm like, oh, I should probably look at this. And then it's like, oh, there's software you can download so that you can have even more control over the camera. And I was just about to do it, but then I'm like, Lindsay, the camera works right now. Do you want to tempt fate by downloading this software? Like, no, I do not. I don't think I do. So I'm going to use it without the software because it just seems to be working so well. I think the brand is like Nexigo. If anybody's interested, I can throw a link in the video description, but I have to find the link where I bought it. I bought it on Amazon. But the neat thing about it is it actually had it has a ring light built into it, which I thought would be great because there have been situations in the past when I was doing the Michael's classes because they use a Zoom platform, where I'm like, I just couldn't get it bright enough. And my studio is bright. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 lights that point at my desk. I've got oh, and I forgot to put my light. I forgot to bring my light over here next to the camera. So if I look dark today, my apologies. I forgot. I'm looking at the light right now. Maybe I should bring it over. I don't know. I'm looking a little dark today. Well, I'm usually overly lit, so this is probably fine. But every day something new. Where was I? Oh, so I have done these Michael classes in the past where I just couldn't get the table bright enough where I'm working, and I think it's a Zoom thing, I don't know. And I'm turning on my overhead lights, which is 2 more lights, so like 6 lights right on my table, and not enough to have it bright enough. So having that ring light on the camera I think is a really excellent option. They sold it without, but I'm like, you know what, I think that's a great idea. And then if I did want to do a live stream at a different desk or something, then I'd have that option, and I have enough light to do it. So I'm pretty happy with that. I think that I'm very slow to add tech to my my business, because it seems like you can get to this point where you're just chasing your own tail and you're like, oh, it would be so much better if I just had this. It'll be so much better if I just had this. And I've done that with art supplies, like, oh, it would be so much better if I had this new thing or that new thing. And it's not better with this new thing or that new thing. I just end up with more things that I need to decide between using, and I don't want to bring more decisions into my day. I am somebody that suffers from decision fatigue. If I have too many options, I won't do anything. I think that's what the whole thing, when I mentioned earlier, where like I step into my studio and then I'm stuck sometimes, and it's because I have too many options, too many decisions. If I make a plan before I even come downstairs that I'm going to sit down and I'm going to work on this, then that takes that decision out of me when I step through the door. So that's helpful for me. It might be helpful for you too, but I definitely find that with technology that less decisions is a better thing for me anyway. So speaking of Michael's classes, it's not up yet, but it will be at michaels.com/classes. The class isn't until March 15th, I think, but we're going to do, I did two versions. I did this version on a piece of gessoed mat board. So I use a Liquitex clear gesso, and generally I'm not a brand snob or anything, even though I've just been talking about PCs. I mean, I didn't even say the brand of my PC. It's Acer, by the way. The reason I do like Acer is because their customer service was excellent when I had to have something repaired, and they repaired it for free. Anyway, and Liquitex gesso has this grit to it that I haven't found in other gessos, so it's really nice for using under a colored pencil. And so I did this with the limited tin of 12 Inktense pencil, not Inktense, oh my goodness, Derwent Lightfast pencils. And I was taking some comments to heart from you guys, and saying that I wish you would do these classes with smaller sets of supplies, because that way we can try something out and it's not too expensive. And I'm like, that's a really great idea. And a lot of times I'm not even thinking about what's in the tin. I'm just grabbing my tin of whatever the media is and I'm using it. And then when I go to make my supply list, I'm like, oh shoot, one of these pencils is from the 100 set. So if they want this exact color, then they got to get the 100 set. And then I'm like, but I didn't plan ahead of time well enough. So I'm like, I'm going to plan ahead a little bit better and make sure I use the 12 color set. That way, if someone is new to this, they can just buy the 12 color set. No matter what set they have, it would have those 12 colors in it. And then I thought this will be a great way to just talk about using a limited supply. And if you're using better quality materials, you can get by with a much smaller supply of materials. Like with watercolor, you don't need many colors at all because you can mix indefinitely on your palette. But with dry media, I find you do need more colors because there's only so much mixing that you can do. But I do find Derwent Lightfast mixes pretty well. So I had done this one that I'm like, I don't feel like I'm getting enough contrast between the is it better if I hold it more in the light or off the light? I'm not sure. I didn't feel like I was getting enough contrast, and plus I had taken a photo of the tomato on a white cloth, and I have this pretty strong reflected highlight, and I was like, I don't know if it's really reading correctly that I have a white cloth here because the background's so dark. So I'm like, well, I'm going to do it again just on white drawing paper. So, I mean, most people will have something like that. They won't have to buy it. And so I used Canson XL mixed media paper, just not the sand grain, but the regular one, because it has a very similar tooth to a drawing paper. But it's a little bit thicker, so it's going to hold up to burnishing and blending and stuff. And this is what we're going to do in the Michaels class, just because I think it's going to be a little bit better. And then if someone is following along with a different brand of pencil and it's not as pigmented, then it'll be on the white paper, so it will be better. But when that's available, there'll be a pattern that you can download. I'm also posting a time lapse of both of them on YouTube so that you'll be able to see the differences of how I approach working on the colored background and how I work on the white. And the video will be about working with a limited palette of pencils. So there'll be both of those options, and they'll be coming up soon. I probably should have waited till they were actually up to talk about them, but they'll probably be up this week. They're pretty good about listing stuff pretty quickly over at Michaels. And I finished this one that I kind of teased last week. I decided I added more detail to the grapes, and then I added some grapes on the counter because I felt like it just needed a little something else. I didn't end up doing that until Monday. My big plans were that I was going to come back into the studio Friday night, but that usually does not happen. I have the best laid plans, right? I'm like, I'm going to come back down to the studio Friday night and I'm going to do that. But I was pretty tired. It had been a week, and I was just like, you know what? I think I need to take the weekend and come back on Monday. I'm glad I did, because sometimes you can be hasty and you can ruin a painting when you haven't enough time to really just get away from it and think about it for a while and come back with fresh eyes. So yeah, I'm happy with the way that came out. And I had a lot of questions from viewers last week going, what are those egg things that are on the table behind you? And they're juggling balls. And people, and then so as I'm explaining that, people are like, Lindsay, do you know how to juggle? And it's, yes, I actually do. It's a hobby that I have. I'm not going to get crazy or do anything fancy in here because I've got like lights and a camera and things I don't want to break around me. But yes, I do enjoy juggling. I have clubs and rings. I've lost one of my rings, so I'm not that good of a juggler apparently. But like I have the big weighted clubs that I only juggle outside because they're kind of dangerous and I always bruise my hands up whenever I use them. But it's a nice little centering tool. It's a nice way to just kind of, I don't know, deal with anxiety, I guess. It's fun. It's kind of like playing ping pong. You can't be anxious when you're playing ping pong. You can't be anxious when you're juggling. So I just have them handy in case I feel like, in case the mood strikes me, in case the urge carries me away, then I must do some juggling. There we go. I got them right there. And I am off on several tangents and off of my list. I've got some really fun endeavors this afternoon. So last week I had a podcast with Sarah Burns, and it was so well received. Everybody loved the podcast. They love the video format, so I will bring video formats with the interviews as long as the video turns out all right, and as long as the guest is comfortable with it. If the guest doesn't want to be on video, then I'm going to respect their wishes, obviously. And the old podcast, any podcast where I'm not with a guest, will not be video, because a lot of times I'm like upstairs in my office where it's warmer and cozier, and this is not a great background, or I'm looking down at my notes and it's not a aesthetically pleasing situation, or I'm sitting upstairs in my closet with my laptop and a microphone because of the sound. It's just better. I can get a better sound in those places, and I don't know if it's coming on the camera microphone, but like my furnace is on right now. I'm in the basement. It's Maine. It's February, so I've got the furnace comes on. Sometimes the water pump comes on, which is in the utility room on the other side of my studio. If you didn't realize it by now, this is not a fancy operation I run here. So if it's a podcast, I'm going to prioritize audio if it's just me. I think it's fine when I'm doing it, when I have a guest. I think a little bit of a hum from the furnace or whatever doesn't really come across so much. But if it's just me, then yeah, I'm not going to have video. But YouTube offers closed captioning, so if you're hard of hearing or you like to read lips, which a couple people mentioned they like to read lips when they are when they're watching a video, there's a closed captioning. Just click the CC button. If you hover over the video with your mouse, or if you're watching on your phone, if you just kind of touch the screen, you'll see the little CC button up in the corner. If you're on a computer, you might have to click the gear and then click on subtitles, but you can turn them on, turn on English subtitles, and you'll be able to read along with that. And I believe there's also a transcript on the YouTube version of the podcast. So I hope that's helpful for anybody that needs it, that maybe didn't know about it. I was just thinking, because I got this, and I'm gonna mention the creator's name because his work is really beautiful. The artist's name is, and I may be mispronouncing this, so my apologies. Wunmo, Wunemo, and he does oil pastel content tutorials, and one of you guys suggested him as an oil pastel resource, so I found the channel. It took me a little digging to find it, and gorgeous paintings, and so I clicked on one of the videos, and it's in Korean, it's got Korean subtitles, and I wanted to see if there were English subtitles, because I thought, you know, it's not going to be long before the AI algorithms that create the subtitles, that do text-to-speech, all of that, would be able to just take a language and convert it and translate it using like Google Translate. I mean, Google owns everything, right? Because Google owns YouTube. Or the company that owns Google also owns YouTube, they could take that transcript and translate it into whatever language. And I mean, honestly, what could happen in the future? I mean, I have no idea what sort of bandwidth and power it would take, but I bet there'll be a time in the future where the AI could actually take, like me doing this video here, they could take my my subtitles, my transcript that they generate, the YouTube generates, and then convert it into whatever other language, but then also use my voice, train on my voice, and then dub it in the other languages too. I mean, that would be crazy. That would be so, I think that would be a great use of AI. Of course, the downside would be that people that get paid to do overdubbing in other languages would be out of work, but that's not something that any YouTuber would be able to afford to pay to do for all these other languages. So I would think that would be like a really beneficial thing for the YouTube community, because I mean, then you could watch a tutorial or a video or like any sort of educational content from any country and be able to understand it. I mean, I'm sure context would be lost in some situations, but we really are kind of in our bubbles when we're consuming social media and we're consuming videos on YouTube. I mean, imagine all the other worlds that would be open up to you by being able to understand people in the other languages. And we are all taught usually a foreign language in high school, but how many of us can retain it? Because oftentimes we're not speaking it unless you live in a dual language community or a dual language household. You forget so much, and even in what you learn in school, even if you take it in college, I would think what you learn there isn't going to be the nuance of the conversation. You know, I can't, when people tell me they watch my channel and their English is not their native tongue, and they can understand me, I'm like, wow, you must be really good, because I know I talk too fast, and that's amazing. But I think something like that could bring more people more understanding of other parts of the world would be a pretty awesome use for AI. Now, I'm not a huge AI fan. I see it disrupting a lot of people's livelihoods, and I'm not down with that. And I would hope that they wouldn't use it in like movies and stuff like that and put people that have studied all these other languages and voice actors out of business. I wouldn't like to see that, but to see it unleashed in a positive way to help bring more positive information to people. Maybe they would have to vet out the channels that had like access to it to make sure that it wasn't like a problematic channel or a channel that often posts misinformation. But I think that's kind of exciting. I mean, I don't know if that's in the works, but it seems like it's probably in the works, because stuff that's been happening recently is stuff I never would have believed was possible. So yeah, I guess we just stay tuned and we see what happens. But yeah, speaking of podcasts, I've got a couple interviews lined up this afternoon that I am so excited for. I've actually Tuesday I decided that, okay, I'm going to email 6 people. I'm going to, ask them to be on my podcast. I'm going to tell them the topics we want to discuss and see if I have any takers. And I thought, if a couple people say yes, that'll be great. I can do this I can call out to people every week or two and talk. I really just want to have cool conversations with artists I love. That's basically it. And I think that would be entertaining to listen to. I always love listening to podcasts like that, listening to conversations, kind of like being a fly on the wall, And so I'm like, all right, just do it first thing, Tuesday morning. We're going to eat the frog. We're going to do that. Because, nobody likes to get rejection, right? And I thought for sure there'd be a lot of, oh, thank you, but I don't have time for that. Or, I figured I'd have a lot of polite, thanks, but no thanks. But everybody said yes. And I am so very excited. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag, but I will tell you who I'm interviewing this afternoon, because I know you guys will be so excited. I am going to be interviewing Marty Owens from owensart.com. We all love his reviews and his tutorials, and he's just overall nice guy. I've been friends with him for over a decade here on this platform. And also Julie Faye-Fan Balzer of Balzer Designs, who is a remarkable artist, author, creator here on YouTube, painter, collage artist, just fantastic. So I get to speak with both of these amazing people this afternoon, so I am beyond excited. I've got my clipboard there with a bunch of questions. I've got my headphones and microphone. I'm all ready to roll. Everything has been tested. So yeah, Fridays are just going to be like the highlight of my week. If I get to record Sat Chat and a podcast interview every Friday, I'm just going to be so excited. So yeah, that's my exciting afternoon. Can't wait to, actually, by the time you see this, I will already have interviewed them. And I think I'll probably play Marty's interview this weekend and Julie's interview next weekend. And I'm thinking Sundays would be a good day for the podcast to come out, because people have time on Sundays. They're, puttering around the house, doing their hobbies, maybe doing some cleaning. Maybe they're out, taking a nice long walk. So I think Sundays will be a good time. I'm not sure if I'm going to have my release a video podcast and the podcast to my podcast app at the same time, because when I publish something through my podcast, it routes to YouTube, So if I also publish the video podcast, because the video one won't come through the RSS feed, I guess it's for audio only. So there'll be two versions of every interview podcast that has video, because there'll be the video version and then there'll be the audio only version, which I don't really, I tried to delete the audio one last week, but it sent it back out again. So I was like, oh, well, I guess I'll just leave it there because it's going to keep firing it back out if I delete it from my podcast app. So there'll be both, but I bet that maybe there's less bandwidth on the audio only one. So if you're on a limited data plan, that might be better for you to listen to that one. I don't know, but that's what it is right now until I can figure out some way to just have the video only one. I could unlist the audio one and it would just be in the it would just be on the playlist. I don't know what the best tack to take. I'm just hoping that YouTube doesn't ding me that, you know, the views will get split between those two. But you know, I'm kind of over worrying about what the algorithm has to say about my content. So, you know, that's how that is. But it's gonna be it's fun. I prefer to listen in the podcast app when it's a podcast. If I have my druthers, if the only way I can get it is on YouTube, I'll listen on YouTube. But because I walk every day, I love to listen to podcasts. I was just listening to Julie's latest episode in my podcast phone app. Whatever you want to call it. I was walking the dog this morning. Oh my gosh, I've got to tell you the weirdest story. So yesterday I was walking the dog, and the dog didn't want to go very far. It was weird. So we're walking, and then she wanted to turn around. So I'm like, all right, we turned around, and then she wanted to go around this little cul-de-sac that was, I live on the corner of a cul-de-sac, and so we're walking around this cul-de-sac, and I'm hearing a weird noise, and I can't quite make out what it is, because it was, sometimes, you know, sounds sound weird depending on what the weather is like. It was unusual. It was probably in the 30s, probably I would say maybe 32, 33, or maybe just above the freezing point, so maybe 34, 33, 34. And I'm hearing this noise, and it's repetitive, and it's like every 30 seconds, and it's this loud noise, and I can't quite place it. I had my headphones in, so I took the headphones out, and there it is again. It's just this loud, it's almost like a bark, it's almost like a howl, it's almost like a machine, like metal rubbing on metal. It's just this, I couldn't quite say for sure it was an animal or a machine in the distance or what. And so as I'm walking around this cul-de-sac, it's getting louder. And then I get to this point, it's kind of between two houses, and I'm hearing it, and I'm like, that sounds like it might be a dog or an injured animal in the woods. And so I was listening for a bit. The dog didn't seem all that bothered. So I was like, well, maybe it's not an animal. So I went home, and I went on my community's Facebook page, and I said, I heard a noise, and I said kind of the location where it was, and I don't know if it's an animal or not, but if anybody's lost their dog, I'm hearing this over there. Because sometimes dogs get loose. Dog gets loose, snaps its run or something, or takes off, gets like, I don't know, an owner drops a leash or something, and dog run. We've been known to have dogs like go on the lam for days in this area, and we have a lot of woods, so it's kind of like somebody loses their dog, they might post, does anyone see my dog? And they're just like, you know, trying to catch sightings of it, and it happens, we're in the country, right? So I wanted to post it there in case anyone has lost their dog, or maybe if somebody had a trap set up, which it's woodsy, but it's not like so far woodsy that I would think there would be hunters or trappers. It's still pretty close to houses. But I was just thinking maybe animal got a porcupine quilled or something, and it was hurt. So I posted on the community board, and then somebody said, you know, you could call the game warden, and I'm like, that's a good idea. So I'm like, I'm going to take another walk out there, see if I can still hear it, and if I do, then I'll call. So I walked out there again. I was still hearing it, but it was fainter, like it was further away, or maybe the animal was getting tired. So I recorded it on my phone, and I didn't have a great recording, but I recorded it, and I saw one of my neighbors just pulling in, so I stopped over to his house, and I said, does this sound like an animal, a wounded animal to you? And he's like, kind of, I think maybe. And I said, do you think I should call the game warden? Because I'm like, I don't know, I don't want to like put up a false alarm, but if there's a hurt animal, I can't, you know, just forget about it and move on with my day. So I called the game warden. They said they were going to send somebody out, and I thought, okay, great, that's awesome. And then a couple hours later, I was getting messages from neighbors of mine saying they're still hearing this noise. It sounds like a dog that's like tired and hoarse. And what'd you hear from the game warden? I'm like, just this. So they were going to send somebody to check it out. And so I went out there again with another neighbor. We were walking, and we were going to see if we could get permission to walk through somebody's land to go see what it was. But the closest houses didn't have anybody home. So we're walking back to this woman I was walking out with. Her in-laws lived pretty close, so we could cut out through their backyard. And just as we were doing that, Maine Wildlife came by, and they went and checked. They were going to check it out, and they walked around the back of this house, and they found there was a dog in a kennel, but there was like a doorway to get back into the house. So they said the dog can go back inside if he wants to. Don't know what he's barking at. Apparently, he was just kind of left out or something. Luckily, it wasn't that cold of a day. Still kind of like bothered me because I'm like, well, what if there's somebody hurt in the house? What if there's something going on in the house? The Maine wildlife person didn't really seem that concerned. It's like, it's not our jurisdiction. It's that would be an animal welfare, or that would be animal control, or the sheriff's department. Somebody checked in later that night and saw a lamp on, and then I went and checked this morning, and I saw the car had been moved, and there was no more barking. So hopefully everything's all right. It's like, I don't know. It's like, am I being overly cautious? Am I being a busybody? I guess I'd rather be accused of being a busybody and then have it be a false alarm than have somebody or an animal hurt that was that was fine, but it was just very weird. And yeah, so that kind of occupied a lot of my brain space yesterday. Just kind of worried about the animal, and anyway, so that was my weird experience for the week. Yeah, do you ever had something like that where you're kind of like, am I being a busybody, or is this is this like a real thing that should be checked out? You just never know. I don't know the people that live there, which is weird because you know pretty much everybody in your neighborhood. But yeah, it was strange. Something I do want to mention, because I can't believe I haven't mentioned it yet today. I have a class with Altenew called Watercolor Playdate. I will put a link to that in the video description. There is, it's going to be February 13th, I believe 12th, or the 13th through the 17th, and then there'll be a live class to wrap it up. Each class will be dropped each day for 6 days, so there'll be 6 classes. They're about an hour each. Some are a little bit shorter, but about that, and then there'll be an hour-long live stream at the end. And when you buy the class, you actually get a bundle of supplies, and there's 2 choices. You can get the regular kit that includes like stamps, stencils. It does not include the watercolor paints or the gouache paints, except for just a tube of white gouache. And then there's a deluxe kit that has the watercolor set and the gouache set, and some extras. So it just kind of depends on like how far along in this journey you are, if you have a bunch of these supplies already. That way you don't have to rebuy the supplies. But that's available over on the Altenew website. I'll put a link in the video description, and you can sign up and join us if you would like. And I think that's pretty much it. I did have some other stuff on my list, but nothing too exciting. I will tell you that there was a rumor that Prismacolor was discontinuing their Premier pencils, the soft core open stock pencils, which is now the only product they offer open stock. But I think there might be some discontinuing going on from certain distributors in certain countries, but I called, because I emailed Prismacolor USA and didn't hear anything back, so I called Prismacolor USA, and they assured me that nothing is happening to the Prismacolor soft core colored pencils. They still will be sold open stock in the United States anyway. So I just wanted to put that out there in case anybody else has heard a rumor. I talked to a representative, providing they gave me the correct information. That's what I'm giving to you, because I didn't want to like say that I heard without following up and seeing if I could actually hear it from the horse's mouth. So hopefully that is accurate, but it is to the best of my knowledge. And that's all the time we have for today. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate you. Let me know what you're up to in the comments below. And until next time, happy crafting. Bye!